Welcome along to podcast 2 of the Film Man and the Film Fan. My name is Brent and this is the owner of Matakana Cinemas, Dan. So, Dan, we should start off, maybe talk about what I've seen at the movies, eh?
I love that.
Okay, so the one I was really excited about, I remember saying to you, I've got to see it before it disappears on its run. So I saw it on the very last day, was The Batman. And, you know, I'm a huge Batman fan. And people were saying, oh, it's just a bit long and all these kind of things. I absolutely loved it. I loved it. It didn't seem long to me at all. And, you know, I've watched it 3 times since.
That's a huge investment in time, Brent.
It is an investment in time, but I just, you know, people were going, you know, cracking on Robert Pattinson and all these kind of things. I went, you know what? I thought he did a brilliant job. I thought the whole cast was incredible. And especially the Penguin. I mean, you know, for Colin Farrell, that transformation, but just the way he played all that was amazing. So it was dark and gritty, and it really built up on the drama, and the music was fantastic. The guy that played the Riddler was just outstanding. And then a little tease of the Joker in the end, which I thought was great. But apparently they've already green-lighted the sequel, and the Joker's not in it, which I'm going, really?
Okay, yeah, well, yeah, it has. I know it's been greenlit.
Yeah.
But to hear that's pretty interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a Jack Nicholson fan. That Michael Keaton Batman, that was in, you know, I was a kid in that one.
Yes.
I loved that film. So unfortunately I didn't catch it, but I've heard fantastic things. I mean, a film that's 183 minutes, you know, about 3 hours. You've spent 9 hours watching The Batman, Brent.
I'm just committed to film.
You are.
That's what it is, Dan.
You are. And one comment about Robert Pattinson is, I think, you know, slowly but surely that's, could you call it a stigma of the Twilight films?
Yeah.
Is you know, passing away, because I think he is actually genuinely a fantastic actor.
Yeah.
And he's proving that in the last few years with a lot of the work he's been doing. So
Absolutely, because there's that movie, The Lighthouse, that people just raved about him in that one. He was amazing. And then the other one I saw that we talked about, and it was interesting because we were both wondering how it was going to be, because it's an original movie, was The Lost City.
yeah.
Came and saw that as a family, and we absolutely loved it. It was just one of those movies you sat down and we laughed all the way through it. And how good was Brad Pitt in that, you know?
So the hair.
Yeah, the hair was magnificent. And my favourite line about how'd you get so good looking, he goes, my dad was a weatherman. I mean, it's just absolutely brilliant. But that did great guns at the box office in the end, didn't it?
We were talking about that last time, and we felt like, well, I did at least, I was, from an industry perspective, really interested to see how that film would perform given where it's sat. It wasn't well, it is not a Marvel film.
No.
It's not a license to print money necessarily, and it's not a discerning title that will pull a small audience. We're really interested in the context of COVID, how films like that sitting in the middle of the film scale would work. And it's gone past where the studio, certainly in New Zealand, thought it would. It's really overperformed. So happy to say that. And you know, people are still coming to it here, and we've been playing it for quite a few weeks. And it just works really well, particularly for couples and for slightly older families. It just has very broad appeal. So that's why I think it's got a lot going for it. And absolutely the return of Sandra Bullock, I think, helped.
Yeah, of course.
And Brad Pitt is genuinely one of the best actors of his generation.
Yeah.
I really, really rate him as an actor. So you put his name on a poster, it definitely adds,
Yeah.
you know, a few $1 million to the bottom line for sure.
And let's not forget Daniel Radcliffe in there, and
yeah.
Channing Tatum,
Yep.
who just played, you know, basically like a Fabio cover book character. He was absolutely brilliant.
Yep.
He was so kind of dopey, and I'm not taking my shirt off all at the beginning, but actually the acting from him and what he did improved all the way through the movie, and I just thought he was outstanding.
Channing Tatum underrated maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, good actor. And that cast list, I think, you know, that really helps to sell a film. So
Yeah, so that was good. So those are the movies that I've seen recently.
yeah, okay. The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent was another one we touched on. Nick Cage playing Nick Cage. I did mention that we have a team member here whose favourite actor is Nick Cage.
Yeah.
He gave it 10 out of 10. I was kind of feeling more around the 6. We try to say no 7s here with our team when we're rating films, so I couldn't go to 8. Felt like the first half was fantastic, and then the second half it fell a little bit into sort of the territory of you've kind of seen it all before. But nevertheless, thoroughly enjoyable film, much like The Lost City.
Yeah.
Great little popcorn flick. So it was fantastic to have those kind of films rocking around at the same time as each other. Yeah.
And you've seen something that I'm really excited about, we need to talk about, because when I first started in radio in 1986, back in the dark ages, the very first movie premiere our radio station did
I can hear the bells now.
was Top Gun
Yes.
with Tom Cruise. And I've told the story before, but it still makes me laugh that we had one of our breakfast announcer up the front introducing the movie. He goes, right, everybody grab onto your joystick and here's Top Gun. And it was back in the days when they showed a movie before the movie. So we're all excited to see Tom Cruise and Top Gun, but I think ended up seeing something that was about gondolas from Venice, which is not really what we were there to see. But hey, just a cult movie, a legend movie.
Yeah,
right?
it was the biggest film of 1986 as well. And since then, it's been 36 years, hasn't it? Yes, there's my
Crikey,
maths
yeah.
there. Not too bad there. Originally, this film was meant to come out in 2019, but we all know what has happened. Finally going to see the projector light of day on May 26th, here in New Zealand at least. Brent and I were talking about it prior to starting the podcast today, and I said, look, I'm just going to reveal during the podcast so we get a natural reaction.
Yeah.
It's a film that knows exactly what it is. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It does that extremely well, and it is better than the original. It's
What?
It's 130 minutes, which on paper looks long, but you just breeze through it. And much like you feel about the Batman, which is much longer, of course, but they're still long run times. If a film is done well, edited well, it's engaging, it really wants to pull you in, you don't even notice that runtime. And we watched it the other day. We were fortunate to go to a advanced industry screening, and there was not quite a standing ovation, but there was an ovation at the end.
Wow.
I think it plays really well to people who have seen the first one before. So it would be helpful if you've seen the first one, but you can also watch it as its own thing, because it's done well enough that you can pick up on the flashbacks that you see through the film, and there's quite a few of them.
Oh, okay.
At the risk of giving too much away, I think most of the cast members have been listed on the call sheet, so you kind of know who's in it.
Yes.
Felt a bit Star Wars at times.
Oh.
A bit Mission Impossible, funnily enough.
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, yeah.
And I think when you see it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Right, yeah.
The acting is bang on. The cast rocks it. The soundtrack is fantastic. And the footage of the fighters and that kind of thing is just astounding. It really had my heart pumping. And I possibly was on the edge of my seat a couple of times.
Wow.
I really enjoyed it personally. It was an 8.5 out of 10.
That's brilliant.
So that's me, someone who I'm into action films, and I was trying to separate my nostalgia for the original film from it and just see it as a standalone film. But what I really noticed afterwards was that it was better in the sort of day or so afterwards than I felt it was when I watched it. So I went from 8 to 8.5.
Wow.
And then the other thing, which was really interesting from a big picture perspective, is it really made me want to come and see all my movies in the cinema.
Well, that's good.
And it's not something I thought of while I was watching it, but later on that day I was thinking, man, I just want to go straight back to the cinema and not even necessarily see that movie. I would see it again for sure, but I felt like I just wanted to go to the cinema and watch movies again. Not that I don't, I do. Of course I watch movies at the cinema, but it did something to me from a theatrical point of view that I just haven't felt in quite a long time, more so than the Bond film. Probably up there with Dune in terms of those big screen action blockbusters that we've seen over the last 6 months. But those would be comparable. But this one is pretty visceral, and it's got all those great touch points on what we had in the first one.
Maybe that's part nostalgia, because when you see those big cult movies, that's all you get. You went to the cinema, that was all you saw, and you flash back to your Jaffas, and you're sitting there and the whole experience. So I know there was a whole lot of cinema people met in the United States, and they were talking about this very thing about getting people back into the cinema, right?
And I really feel like that film, if you go and see it on the big screen, which it's one of those films that, you know, if you're pulling out 3 or 4 films per year and saying that must be seen on the big screen,
Right.
this is probably right up there.
Oh, okay.
You know, yeah, highly recommended, and yeah, really looking forward to seeing it open in New Zealand cinemas.
Can I ask one question without giving away too much?
You can, and I may or may not answer this.
Is there a beach volleyball scene?
No.
There's not. Oh, good. I won't feel inadequate going to see it. That's brilliant then, yeah. No one wants to see a bunch of pilots with their clothes off, you know, and abs. Not when you're a middle-aged guy.
You have to see the film, and my answer will make more sense when you see the film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So what are some other things that are going on at the cinema?
Well, I tell you what, we're really excited with the way things are tracking. I think if you look at the way the film schedule's rolling out over the rest of 2022 and into 2023, we're starting to get dates sort of falling into place now. They'll always shift around, but it's feeling like films are going to stick pretty much to the release period, whereas the last couple of years, as I mentioned, Top Gun meant to be 2019.
Yes.
Bond was shifted. A lot of those big titles just got, you know, shunted back.
Yeah.
It feels like there's more certainty, and it does feel like that schedule's just starting to feel stronger.
Yeah.
And, you know, we'll probably say this every podcast, Brent, but content is king.
Absolutely.
And if you get films appealing to people that they want to watch in the cinema, but, you know, people will come. Of course, you've got to provide a clean and safe and comfy and friendly environment as a theatre. But to have films that people want to see is a huge percentage of the driver for people coming to the cinema.
There's been lots of talk about box office at the moment, and actually there was a lot of talk about Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and what that did and how that invigorated the box office. So I'm always fascinated about that. So the box office take, is that just the amount of tickets that sold? How does it work, you know, reporting back and that from a cinema point of view? Yeah,
I guess if you're looking at box office, you often have reporting coming out of the States because it is kind of the home of Hollywood and cinemas. When they talk about worldwide grosses, they're talking about the exact amount of money that a film has made in every cinema that it's played worldwide.
Right.
You'll often read in American publications domestic gross, and they're talking about the US market. Traditionally the biggest market on the planet. China has really come up big time in the last 5 or so years. That Chinese box office has sort of plateaued and actually tapered off a bit recently because you know, there's a big breakout of COVID over there.
Yes,
The government does select which US films it can play in that market, so it's a bit more selective. That aside, the US box office is generally the largest in the world, so they talk about domestic and worldwide. Distributors and the industry on a whole, they still believe firmly in the international market actually making big blockbuster films really work, because domestically they will kind of get them to the break-even point, because these films cost a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it's the worldwide grosses that often take it to that next level, if in the event that happens, to really make a film profitable. So even though the domestic market, US, might be the biggest money taker, it's still really crucial that worldwide it happens. And then when it comes to a place like New Zealand, we're quite a small market, of course. We don't have a lot of sway when it comes to taking releases. We do have the advantage of where we sit in terms of the worldwide time clock. We often get releases a day or two before other countries, which was really neat. But for a film to do really well in New Zealand, it's not really significant in terms of what it looks like worldwide, but in terms of what I'm looking at, it's absolutely the benchmark, isn't it? We'll try and look at how a film's performing in the US market, and definitely the British and the Australian markets, to try and make comparisons if you're getting a film that we're going to be showing here releasing earlier than us. And we've got a few formulas that we kind of look at, and I've even got a formula that I look at in terms of estimating what New Zealand will do and then what percentage will Matakana Cinemas do, for example. But that percentage actually fluctuates depending on what the title is. So a blockbuster will be a smaller percentage of the New Zealand market, and a Downton Abbey or The Duke might be a slightly higher percentage for us. We tend to overperform with titles like those, discerning mid-range titles, dramas.
Yeah.
Well, if you think of us versus Queen Street,
Yeah, that's right,
Event
exactly.
Queen Street or Event Newmarket, they're going to take proportionally much higher money with a Marvel film or Jurassic World, for example. And then when you're pulling it down even further, all the tickets we sell, we count that as gross box office. The studio invoices us for it based on a per ticket sold, and it's a sliding scale, so a big film will open at 55% and there's a split there, and then it drops off as each week goes.
Okay. Right.
So for us as a cinema, we want a film to play long, because the percentage terms drop off.
Yeah.
So by that, strong word of mouth, and being able to keep a film around, shortening theatrical windows, and what I mean by that is when a film finishes in theatres and goes to streaming, or what traditionally used to be a DVD release.
True.
Does have a bit of an impact in terms of how long we can play a film.
Right.
However, it's been really interesting. I think some films that play theatrically for a period of time hit the cut-off period and switch to streaming or availability through paid, iTunes, Apple TV and Neon and so on, where you still have to pay for it. People will still come and see it in the cinema, even when it's on streaming. So that's not the case for all films, but it's just a really interesting kind of twilight zone of film watching at that point. And I think the consumer in the end makes the decision. Content is king.
Absolutely.
We go back to it. Yeah. So that's a very broad overview of how it works.
But that's really good. And next time on the next podcast, I want to talk about programming, because I find that whole scheduling of movies, there's a real art to it, isn't there?
Well, we're going to need a long podcast for that one, Brent.
That's all right, yeah. We've got plenty of time, Dan. That's all good. But you've got a few great things returning to Matakana Cinemas too, like Cinema Enigma, haven't you?
Cinema Enigma it's one of those fan favourite events, and we actually had to stop it for a long period of time for obvious reasons. We brought it back in May, and we don't publicise what the film is. That's the premise. It's Cinema Enigma. The film's an unknown. You don't know until you sit in your seat and the film starts. We only charge $9 for those tickets because we're asking people to have a little bit of faith in the films we're selecting, and without giving away too much in terms of what we play, we try and keep it broad, but it falls into a little bit of a type of film that people come to see. And a lot of people really like that, but a lot of people make that call, I'll go and see what it is. And we do occasionally have, people who watch the first 10 minutes and they walk out, but that's the whole point.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But I love the idea of people not just looking at a film schedule and going, I want to see that film and nothing else. I think what this does is it gets people excited about going to the movies without knowing what they're going to see.
Yeah.
And it just creates a little bit of a buzz and a bit of excitement about going to the cinema, which is what we're all about, without even knowing what you're going to see. And in May we played The Velvet Queen, which is a really beautiful, slow-paced documentary about the snow leopard and a French film crew. It's a French film trying to look for the elusive, enigmatic
that title nicely.
Sorry, snow leopard. And we've got Cinema Enigma again, and we're going to try and do it monthly as we always have in the past. We've got it coming up on June the 7th. Managed to secure a very good film for that, so I'm really excited. So Enigma fans, be there.
Well, the thing, as a film fan, I think it's a great idea, because you might see something that you never intended to see that could become one of your favourite movies.
It might shift your perspective on types of films.
Yeah.
We like it because it gets people seeing movies that they may not necessarily like, but if they stick it out, they might change their perspective, as I've said. And we've seen a little bit of a bump in the ticket sales for Velvet Queen. Is that word of mouth from Enigma? I don't know.
Yeah.
I would hope that's just another aspect of playing Enigma. Yeah.
Also, the film festival season's on the way too. You got a few happening here, haven't you?
It's a serious film festival. We've got about 4 months of film festivals coming up. I mean, it's not literally 4 months, but we've got, which I'm really excited to be having this year. We couldn't do it last year. Our old mate, there's a reason for that. June the 9th to the 19th, the French Film Festival Aotearoa. Everything's up online, and we have the program at the box office here. It's a fantastic lineup. We've got about 18 films off the top of my head, and that's
Wow.
showing from the 9th to the 19th, 3 films every day. And so for French film fans, that is definitely something to look out for. Not far away now. It's
No.
only a few weeks. And then really excited that we can actually get the New Zealand Film Festival,
Yes.
the International
Yeah.
Film Festival, happening again this year. We were so pumped up to get it last year, and then it didn't happen.
No, I remember all that building up to it and thinking, oh, this will be great. And then.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and there was a huge amount of excitement in the community. Not only was it that we couldn't play it last year, it was going to be our inaugural year, and it turns out that this one is.
Yeah.
I'd been trying to get it here for about 10 years, so it was a real personal victory for me, and I was, quietly proud about that one. So
Good on you.
really, really excited to have
Yeah.
it here. And that's August the 18th to the 28th, so that's a 10-day festival here for us. Then we hit September. Cinema Italiano Film Festival's back.
Right.
Paolo Rotondo, our old mate, he's going to probably be here rocking a Vespa through the foyer or something. Look
what
forward.
I'd like to see.
Yeah, always look forward to having Paolo back here.
Yeah.
I think this is the 5th year we've got the Italian festival. And then in October, Show Me Shorts Film Festival returns. So it really is packed out, and it's kind of finally 2022. We've got all the festivals that we wanted, and so for me the sky's the limit. I mean, what other festivals can we get in now?
Yeah.
That is kind of like a marker in the sand. We've got those 4 happening now, and it's been a long time coming to get
Yes.
all of those into our annual schedule.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about what the future holds.
Oh, that's good. And then, of course, we've got a whole lot of new movie releases coming up as well, haven't we?
Let's talk about June.
Yeah.
So what are you excited about coming up in June? There's a lot.
Yeah. Is Jurassic World?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course, Jurassic World.
I want to see that because I've seen the trailer.
Yep.
And Sam Neill's in there.
Jeff
Laura
Goldblum.
Dern, Jeff Goldblum.
Yep.
And they cracked out a lot of the great lines from the original movie, and it looks to me, just from the trailers, going back to what the first Jurassic Park movie
Yes.
was all about.
Yes.
It looks really wow.
The nostalgia thing is really on right now, and the 90s is really on right now. I feel like you've got a similar thing happening as we do with Top Gun Maverick. So
Yes.
you do have returning cast, you've got new cast, and you've got the purely by virtue of those people being in the film, you actually have that nostalgia feel to it. And from what I understand, this is the last of this trilogy. Who knows where the franchise will go
Sure.
from here, but
Yeah.
as far as I know, it might be the last one for a period of time. So it's kind of the end of a thing, and that's pretty exciting for the fans of Dinosaurs.
Oh, I think so, because I remember I was lucky enough to go to the preview of that movie when it first came out.
The original.
Yes, and it was done in the Civic in town.
Yes.
And when the first dinosaur came on screen, you could just hear people in the cinema go,
Yeah.
wow, it was amazing. But now when you see the advances, and even from then, but at the time it was like, this is absolutely incredible. We're seeing dinosaurs for the first time on screen.
Got a few dinosaur fans in our office, and they'll be pretty pumped about that. Not me, by the way.
Oh, really? Not a dinosaur guy?
Yeah, I'm more of a plane guy. So
Right, okay.
when I was a kid, Top Gun did appeal.
That's right.
Because I was into that kind of thing. So
Pilot Dan. That's what it was going to be.
yeah. I wish, yeah. And we've got a stack of stuff coming out in that month. I think what is going to be a film, speaking of planes and going even further up into the stratosphere, is going to, a film that's going to really take off.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I love it. We love puns.
We're
We love
dads.
tying it in. It's brilliant.
We're dads.
Yeah. Dad
Is
jokes.
the Toy Story offshoot film Lightyear?
Yes.
You were talking a little bit about this just before we
I
started
was.
recording.
Because originally when I saw Lightyear and I went, oh, what's this all about? It's not Tim Allen doing the voice. It looks realistic. But then someone explained it to me that it's the movie that Andy went to see and bought the toy, and that's why Buzz thinks he's Buzz Lightyear, because of that movie. So it's the origin story
Yeah.
of Buzz Lightyear, and I didn't actually put that together till someone explained it to me.
Yeah, it's a very clever premise actually,
is.
and I'm into Toy Story. Wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to watch them.
Yeah.
I know that those films just have stacks of fans, right?
Yes. Yeah.
There are plenty of Toy Story film fans out there. Nevertheless, I'm quite interested. You talk about that premise, and it tweaks my interest for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I may well come along.
That'll be good, because I remember when Toy Story came out, and my two brothers and I, we were like the only adults in the cinema, apart from parents with kids, and we're like three of us, these big boys walking, and yeah, we absolutely loved it.
And that's another thing I guess we can touch on, is that you're now seeing films that were coming out 20 years ago, animated films, and people have grown up, but it still reminds them of their childhood, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's good to be a little bit young sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's right, because, you know, as we say, like, music is memories, and movies are memories as well. You tie them into episodes in your life, and that's why I think you're saying with Top Gun and Maverick, it's that getting back into the cinema, that experience.
Gives you good vibes, good feelings, you know, that's what people need right now.
They do.
So that's June 16th for Lightyear. We go on to June the 23rd, and it's all on.
Right.
We've got 5 films opening here at Matakana, at least. June 23rd. We do have 5. So let's see how we go. Okay, we've got Elvis from Baz Luhrmann.
That looks great. I watched the trailer for it the other day. Tom Hanks is in that.
Yeah, he plays Elvis's agent, and you know, Tom Hanks films work. They just do.
They do.
And Baz Luhrmann knows how to make a lush, big screen picture. Really intrigued about that. I don't think we need to say too much in that, you know, Elvis. People love Elvis. You know, decades after he passed away, people love Elvis. And Matt at the cinema and I were talking about how it would compare to a film like Rocketman or Bohemian Rhapsody, going back to the box office question. What will it do? It's going to be really interesting to see how it goes.
Well, Lisa Marie Presley said it's the closest thing representing her father.
There's an endorsement.
Yeah. She said she cried through it. She took her kids along to see it and said it was just incredible.
Fantastic.
So there
you go.
Yeah.
It's sold. There you go.
Exactly, yeah.
Done. June 23rd. Also, we've got 2 Kiwi films opening here at Matakana on the 23rd of June. Nude Tuesday. The trailer's really interesting, and what the premise is about is something that I haven't looked too much into, but it's a film done in gibberish. That's what it says on the poster.
Really?
So the way that they've created the film is not straight up in the Kiwi accent or, you know, in the English language. It's done in gibberish. So I'll kind of leave that there.
Okay.
Jermaine Clement, Jackie Van Beek,
right.
you know, are in the cast, and it's by all accounts, I've heard a few people who have been to see it, and I couldn't make a screening earlier in the month that was being put on by the distributor. I know a few of my industry colleagues saw it, and they said, I'm booking this. This is a hoot. It is absolutely hilarious.
Oh, that's good.
Something for the adults, R16, but, you know, you need to mix it up.
Yeah. I was going to say Nude Tuesday wasn't another concept like Cinema Enigma.
Yeah. No, not quite. Not quite. Only happens on Tuesdays. Yeah. Also opening on the 23rd. I guess we can touch on the New Zealand's brand new public holiday, Matariki, which is, you know, really exciting. That film coming out just in time for, about Dame Whina Cooper.
Yes.
Done by James Napier Robinson, who I think did one of the best New Zealand films ever made, The Dark Horse, back in 2016. James came and did a Q&A here when we watched that film, and after the film finished, people were just like, you know, wiping away the tears. I adore that film. It's probably in my top 10 films of all time.
Wow,
stunning. The cinematography, the script, the acting. Cliff Curtis is phenomenal. James Rolleston, phenomenal. Just the way that film was done. It was, I keep saying this to people when I rave on to them about it when it comes up in conversation. The Dark Horse, I feel like, is almost a flawless film. So he's the director on this film. I think we've got pretty high hopes for the quality of this picture. Very important person in New Zealand history, Dame Whina Cooper. Really looking forward to seeing that. Going over to Egypt, we've got Tutankhamun, which is a little release in the Art Beat series, and it's one of those historical characters that always interests people. The Egyptian king that died at the age of 18. Hosted by Iggy Pop, of all people. So, and I think that will have real appeal to people, a little release, but I think that will actually get quite a few people through the door, surely to be done well. I think just adds to the mix that we're talking about here of the films that are releasing.
Yeah, my wife loves Egypt. We went to Egypt as a family and went to all the pyramids, and we're just fascinated by that. So we'll definitely be coming along to see Tutankhamun. Yeah.
And number 5 of the films that we're talking about for the 23rd of June, it's a lot, is Lion King Rao Maori.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really exciting. Taika Waititi's in behind this project, and for him to see these kind of projects realised, we've got others coming up later in the year from Disney, is really exciting to bring our indigenous language to the screen over such an important and popular film is really exciting. So, that's the motherlode of films, and you can see that we've got a really strong crop of films centred around the Matariki holiday, which is really cool for us with this brand new public holiday and in the theatrical and cinematic world.
Wow, the Lion King and Te Reo, that's going to be brilliant.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
What a cool idea.
Yeah.
And I guess we've got to finish on a high note.
Yes.
Yeah, June the 30th, Minions.
Yeah. Kevin, Barry, all those guys.
Yeah, all those guys. The rise of Gru. So, here we go. We're, kind of nostalgia. We're going back to when Gru was a kid.
Yeah.
And what made him want to be a villain. And, let's face it, people love Gru and the Minions.
He's good. He's got hair in that one too, so that'll be a different thing to see.
And his scarf's a bit longer because he's a bit smaller.
Yeah.
So, as you can hear, I think that we've got a really fantastic lineup for June, and that takes us into July school holidays where there's just more fantastic stuff. I think if you are listening to this, watching this podcast, you're sort of hopefully feeling through the screen and through your headphones or however you're listening to this, the excitement that we have for film and what we've got coming up. And I'm really grateful that we've kind of been able to navigate through the most difficult time as a business, not only us, but as an industry. And to start seeing people coming back to the theatre and to start seeing those numbers, people re-emerge and want to come out and have that theatrical experience and see movies on the big screen. And the films we've got lined up, all the signs are pointing towards, us sticking around, which is great.
That's good, Dan. And I've kept your Jaffa budget up, so I've been eating quite a few Jaffas while I'm here.
Good man.
Standard.
I was wondering why we were running out of Jaffa.
Yeah, I know, that's me.
Yeah.
And they're the bigger ones, and I can't roll them down the aisle anymore. I wouldn't do that to you. But yeah, look, it's just great to see everybody back in the cinema, and I look forward to our next podcast of the film Fan and the Film Man.
Thanks, Brent, and thanks everyone for listening and watching.